Akash, how do you analyze the whole situation where people put everything onto destiny? You have a stillborn child and you say it was destiny, मेरे कर्म थे जिसकी वजह से मुझे punish किया गया.
To a certain extent, it's part of our culture. It's part of the way we look at things, that karma is responsible for what we do, how we live our lives. And because of destiny, it's possible to not take responsibility for your own life. And it's an easy way to blame something which is totally out of your control. And also it's a part of a sort of faith. It's what helps you to work through a crisis, because it is written, and what is written must happen. And therefore we have to bear it. That's one way. And the other thing is that it also gives a feeling of being able to control your life by doing good karma. So you say, पिछले जन्म में बुरे कर्म किए थे, तो अब उसका हमें फल मिल रहा है. So if we do good karma now, probably in some other life we will gain some good out of it. And it's part of a philosophy of whatever you give, you get back in some way. And is actually a good way to live if you do not have other resources which will help you to console yourself in times of grief, in times of loss, in times of stress.
And what happens to all that science where the gynecologist tells you that, look, there's something wrong with your chromosomes and that's why you produced an unhealthy or a dead child? So where does all the rationality of the 21st century go there?
The rationality is important in its own place. So it is then important to understand that it's not, everything is not karma, and that if science has brought something which is going to help you, that's also part of karma. That it is part of your own destiny that this was to be available to you and that you can benefit from it. So that's an extension of, if you want to look at it from the karmic viewpoint. But of course, scientific advances are there, they are necessary, they help us in many ways to change our lives, and therefore they need to be looked at in the proper perspective.
And where do, if everything is destined, then where do psychologists, psychiatrists stand in the whole equation? You don't need them when everything is destined.
They're part of destiny, no? You were destined to meet me so that I could help you. Okay? It's part of the whole cycle. Once you believe in that fully, not just use it as something to blame because you're now in trouble, but as a way of life, as a way of viewing your world, then you do accept whatever comes as part of your karmic cycle. You were destined to meet so-and-so who would then help you. You were destined to be in this place at this time so that this crisis could hit you. You are also destined to be in this place at this time so that this healing could come to you. Only thing is that we view karma in a very narrow way, where we blame it for everything going wrong, and very rarely do we look at it as a positive part of what other things are being offered to us.
And what happens to all those people all those women, we've interviewed some of them, who have gone through this kind of a trauma and who've never asked for any outside help, and who now, after say 10 years of the episode, 5 years of the episode, say that they were on the verge of madness, but they still said that it was all destined, and they never put on their shoes and went to a person, say a psychologist or a psychiatrist for help. So how do you see that situation?
See, there is a big resistance to getting help for emotional trauma. For physical illness, we would automatically go to a doctor or a Ved or a homeopath or somebody who would be able to help us to heal that. When it's emotional, unless you're on the absolute brink of insanity and somebody has to force you to go to a doctor or a therapist, generally you don't choose to do it, and because it means that you're mad. It's going to a psychiatrist is linked with insanity, whereas it is actually simply a way of resolving problems which are not available to be solved through medication or to be solved through some other intervention. It's difficult, and there's not enough awareness about how a psychiatrist or how a therapist can help you to heal yourself. There's fear, there's a stigma, and so it's never an option until you reach the last stage. So I think awareness about this kind of healing needs to be spread a lot.
How often do you come across women who come to you with, have you ever dealt with a case where there have been women who come to you, who've gone through a stillbirth?
I have not dealt with any such person myself, not a stillbirth. I have dealt with people who have lost a child at some point. It is not exactly the same thing. But people do come. It's the first step which is necessary to take. Somebody must first come for help. The moment they come and they realize it's non-threatening and that it's a very peaceful and healing experience, then it will spread. But I have not dealt with anyone who's actually had a stillborn child.
And why?
Nobody is to blame here. It's something which has happened, which needs to be dealt with at that level, not by blaming. No.
Do you think
both need counseling? The woman needs it first, and the family needs it to be able to, because it is a family event. The loss of that child probably had a lot of importance for everybody in the family in different ways. But the woman, as the carrier of that life, is the one who is hit most. And the others, because some of their expectations are not met, or there is sadness at the loss. So it is a family matter. It is always a family matter. Everybody needs help.
And if the family refuses to be counseled, if the family thinks that it's the perfect family which is blaming the woman, and if the woman is not able to take care of herself, then what next? What should she do?
The woman can go for help. That's one thing. She can ask for help. See, help is available, but it has to be asked for. If something happens in my home, nobody knows about it until I go out and say, this has happened, will you help me?
And do you see, I mean, there have been women who've told us that their marriage broke because of a stillborn child. So do you see yourself playing a role between the divorce and the birth of that stillborn child? If she had gone out for help, she closed herself, she did not discuss it with anybody, and the family as usual thought that they were the most perfect family around, blaming the woman for everything. Now that ended up in a divorce. It does. Marriages go on the rock because of such events. Mm-hmm. So do you see a psychiatrist or a psychologist of any help who could have, I don't know if one could have helped it or not, but do you see any probability where if she had gone out for help, she could have helped the marriage to survive?
Certainly. Certainly. A lot of marriages in which there have not been stillbirths also are unhappy marriages, and many of those people do come to me, and many of them do resolve it and go on to live very, very happy relationships. So no matter what the cause, it is possible to change your life, but you have to want to change it.
I'm trying to take the professional cap off, professional hat off, and just talking to you as a human being and as a person. And I'd like to know what is your way of healing yourself?
My way of healing myself is to accept responsibility for myself. I don't blame others for what happens to me. And when I begin to take responsibility for myself, then I know that I can help myself. That's the first. And when I stop blaming others, I find that it becomes more difficult at one stage, but also it's a much more healthy way of dealing with it, because then I know what I have to deal with. I don't have the power to change another human being. I do have the power to change myself. In fact, that's the only power I do have. You know, I can control my thoughts, I can control my feelings, I can decide for myself. I can't make anybody else do what I want them to do. Yeah? So that's the basic. And of course I use things like, I use a lot of Reiki. I find that the energy helps to stabilize me at many times when I'm tired, when I'm feeling sad or defeated, if I sit down for half an hour with myself and do Reiki, it's like a meditation. It's a silencing of myself and coming back to centering myself and being aware, okay, this has happened, I can solve it. The problem takes a minute, the solution is there.
I just get them to keep quiet in the kitchen, please. What when there are circumstances when conceivably you are not to blame?
I'm not talking of blame. Most of the time I'm not to blame.
How do you deal with
Things
that?
still happen. So I accept that it's not a question of blame. I can do something to pull myself out of the mess that I got myself into in the first place.
You keep saying that mess I got myself into. Maybe you didn't get yourself into that mess.
I did,
Always.
always.
So you assume total responsibility.
Yeah. Nobody can get me into a mess. They don't have the power. If I take a step from here to there, I did it. If I'm talking to you today, I said yes. If I had said no, I wouldn't be doing it. Nobody forced me. And so on. Yeah?
Suppose you didn't take the step.
Yeah.
Supposing you're a standing still person
Mm-hmm.
and this great emotional pain hits you. You've done nothing. You're still.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a mental pain or emotional pain that slaps you on the face and walks away.
Mhm.
Then how do you come to terms with it?
What do you mean? Standing at a red light and somebody comes and hits me?
Metaphorically or physically? Sure, why not?
Mm. I still look within. That's the only way. That's the only way. Because, all right, it's come. It's hit me. Now what do? Do I crash? No, I don't. I say, all right, I've been hit by this. And it's true, I have been hit. Personally, I have been hit many times. And I say, okay, got hit. Now what shall I do?